Good idea.
While we're still waiting, Mary, I need a copy of your ID for AMCS. They requested it today and I don't have a copy ready to send to them. So if you can send me a copy of it, even via text, then I can send it to them. Thank you.
Okay, will a photocopy work?
Yes,
Like
a
a-
photocopy
like-
works.
If she just took a picture on her phone and sent it to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we will call this meeting to order. It looks like we're live. It looks like we've got, we're on Facebook and it is, I'm trying to find a phone, at 4:10 PM. Those of you watching through Zoom, we're sorry, we're late, had a few technical difficulties to start with. Do we have anyone in the waiting room to talk to us today?
You need to state who is in attendance. You need to say who's in attendance.
Oh, yes. Currently, who's in attendance? We have by Zoom, we have part of the board there, Diane is on Zoom. LJ's on Zoom, Nick's on Zoom, and Mary is on the phone with she doesn't have video, so she's just on audio. With us is we have Mike, Nick, Chris, Chad, myself. What's your name, Savannah? Sorry, you know how it goes with names. And anyway.
I did not mean to put you on the spot.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks a lot. So do we have anyone who's any public to be heard, any citizen input?
There's nobody in the waiting room and I have it. That's Mary.
Okay,
And I checked the main email before I left. There's nothing in there.
no emails in there. Okay, great. It's a busy time. I'm amazed at how much traffic is on the street out there. My gosh, it's hard to get in and out of this place and any place else. So we have the approval of the minutes that we need to review for September 20th, 2023. Are there any corrections or any changes to the minutes that we had for the September 20th, 2023 regular meeting?
Those were corrected, the ones that you noticed, Kevin, they were corrected and they were sent out with the current amended packet.
Okay, great.
So I make a
So-
motion,
Unless there's anything that we didn't catch before that, then.
Right.
but
Okay.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes for September the 20th as presented in the most recent board packet.
I second that.
Any more discussion on those minutes? Can I get a vote? Diane,
Yay.
Mary? Is she muted? Her hand's
She
up.
put her hand up.
Okay, good. Chad?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Great. Motion passes. Treasurer and financial report. I can't even say Raftatelis. Presentation and update on financial CIP. Who's handling that?
Well, Raftalis will be presenting. Todd is from Raftalis. He's on, but I don't see him.
I'm here trying to clear out all my windows. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes.
Do you need a minute there, Todd?
No, I'm ready to go. I guess here's the handoff. So here we go.
Do you want to go video, Todd, or?
Oh, yes, I'm going to share my screen here. I
Yes.
invariably always do it wrong. Host has disabled participant screen. Can someone open me up and allow me to share my screen?
Just as a reminder to the board, Raftalis was the consulting firm we hired to help us come up with a rate study, compensation study, and our capital improvement plans for the next 10 years.
Jessica or Savannah, you need to enable the sharing for,
It's enabled.
okay, thank you.
Excellent. Enabled. Okay. Let's see.
And Todd, it looks like
Okay.
you may-
Can you
may
see
need to
that?
Click your, not yet.
Oh, I see. I need to share my, I need to start video.
There you
It's
go.
always something, isn't it?
Good to
We can
meet
look
you,
it up.
Todd.
Likewise,
you,
thank you
Todd.
everyone for your time. Appreciate the time this afternoon. I do have a important topic to discuss tonight, and we'll say that we've been working diligently with Mike, LJ, and Nick over the past few months, and this has kind of been a labor of love for us. We were really excited about getting this opportunity to work with Canyonlands because we don't get to work with many solid waste utilities in Utah, and seeing how it's right next to Colorado, that always makes me happy. I'm from Colorado. So what we have today is we spent the past few months putting together a financial plan and basically assessing the solid waste utilities financial health. And this is going in concert with your work with Zions Bank. That'll be doing the bond refunding. So today our discussion is talk about the study goals and objectives. What are we trying to do? What's the process we went through for developing a financial plan? Or that's just a fancy way of saying a cash flow, basically. And what are the different scenarios we came up with? We were really limited on the amount of scenarios. We just have there's some bottlenecks over the next 10 years that are really putting some upward pressure on potential rate increases. And I'll walk through with you what those are. What the proposed rates would be under these scenarios we've developed. And we'll be showing those proposed rates in terms of a city residential 96-gallon, one pickup a week customers, to keep it simple. We have a peer survey we'll show you with some surrounding communities. And when I say surrounding, I'm making that a very broad brush there. We're looking at some utilities in Western Colorado and Northwestern Colorado and some in the Utah area. There's just not many small utilities that provide solid waste service as a municipal utility. And conclusions and next steps, some of the things that we're going to put out to the board to consider when making the decision on what sort of financial plan or revenue adjustments that you want to go with. So with that, one thing I want to point out is that utilities continue to increase as does everything else, but this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There's the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, basically inflation. And you look at water and sewer bills over time, electric bills over time, gas bills over time for a residential household. You can see that solid waste is climbing exponentially here. It's catching up with water. So Canyonlands is not alone in terms of increased cost pressures. It's happening across the US. A lot of the clients we work with everywhere from Florida to California are seeing that certain areas of their system have been underfunded, and they're seeing level of service issues. And so in terms of rate increases in the solid waste industry, it's not just unique to Canyonlands. It's happening all over the US where we've been working. So,
Todd,
quick-
I don't mean to interrupt, but have you started the slideshow?
Yes.
We
Have you
are
not? Oh,
we're-
man.
We're not seeing it.
Oh, boy, that's
We're
just.
seeing
You've been clicking on it. We
Oh.
wondered what was happening.
It says stop video. Oh, I need to show. I really apologize.
Not a problem. There we go.
Where did
I
it
was
go?
like-
Okay.
I knew that slide we definitely talked about, and I'm like, wait a minute.
How about that?
Hey, there we go.
Okay. Well, maybe I should undo the animation to make the dramatic effect here. But again, this is the CPI over since 1984, basically inflation. But as I went back and looked at, well, what's happening to regular utility bills for people, for households, and water and sewer has gone up quite a bit. And there's a really interesting reason for that. Electric's kind of continued up. Gas goes up and down, of course. But solid waste has increased quite a bit. And it's kind of going up exponentially. And so basically, Canyonlands, it's not unique to Canyonlands seeing these increases. So as we go through this, we have some financial plan scenarios, and obviously we're going to propose some revenue adjustments here. Now, I wanted to point out, Raftellus and Zions Bank will be working together down the road. Our role in this was to come in and assess the financial health of the solid waste utility and look at a long-term plan and develop what amount of revenue does the utility need to take in order to meet its expenditures and its capital improvement program. This information feeds into Zion's Bank when they go ahead and are looking at refunding the debt for the utility. But they're more involved in the debt component of this, the underwriting, looking at different financing options, interest only, and that sort of thing. The number of series and bonds they want to issue with this refunding, bond issuance expense, and security insurance for debt reserve funds. So they're looking more at the issuance of the bond. They're dealing with the underwriters and that sort of thing. We're feeding into that by giving them an independent cash flow analysis of saying, here's how the utility needs to maintain its financial health. Here's what needs to happen in order to meet all the metrics for them to go out and reissue or refund a bond and give you the best possible rate. So that's how we're kind of working together. They're coming after the fact in, I think, middle part of next year when your bonds are first callable. So we're providing the first snapshot of this, try and get everybody on the right track. And they're going to take that information. Hopefully by then, your financials and metrics will look great enough to where they can go ahead and look for the refunding on debt and get a favorable interest rate. So obviously, there's a number of things the authority needs to fund. We have operations, capital expenditures. We have to maintain reserves, that minimum amount of money we need in the bank, debt service coverage for those bonds you have now, and you want to make sure you're recovering your costs. And we're going to do that through these financial planning scenarios, through your collection and landfill revenues. You have that TRT taxes. We're also going to look at some loans and leases on your capital equipment, as well as you have other miscellaneous revenue, recycling, hazardous waste, and that sort of thing. So what we need to do is balance those revenues with the expenditures and make sure you come out whole at the end of this 10-year plan. So let's talk about the financial plan. It sounds simple, but it gets pretty complex. There's, really three components to it. There's the revenue and other sources, and that's all the sources of funds you take in, everything from taxes and interest income, the miscellaneous revenues, your recycled income, your collection revenue, and that sort of thing. You obviously have your expenditures, your operating expenses, your capital equipment, other capital projects or facilities, maybe a new building. You have your debt service you need to pay, both existing and proposed. And you obviously have these other metrics you need to meet of reserve levels, maintaining a minimum reserve level, and your debt coverage ratios. And debt coverage ratios are similar to the debt to income ratio they look at when you want to buy a house. They always are very interested in your debt to income ratio. It's just the inverse of that. Debt service coverage ratios are very important, especially when we're funding debt, because bondholders want to make sure they're going to get paid, and rightfully so. So it's a balancing act. We have to balance all these things. How do we fund all these things while minimizing financial risk to the utility, to the authority, but also minimizing the impact to customers? We could issue a lot of debt, raise the financial risk, but have low rates to the customers, but end up paying more over time because you're paying interest. So we have to balance all of that over the study period. And it can get kind of squirrely. It takes a little time to do that. But what spits out of that, all that analysis, is a financial plan, a multi-year financial plan. And we've developed 3 financial plans, kind of a best case, worst case, and a middle of the road to show you the magnitude of the revenue adjustments of what needs to happen and how what kind of risk the authority might assume under one versus another scenario. And please stop me if you have questions or if I need to back up. So a few assumptions here, just to give you a lay of the land. O&M about 5%, the utilities cost about 4.5%, personnel costs, salaries, wages, benefits about 5%. We know that costs have been going up quite a bit. We keep on hearing in the news about inflation, but we know that there are some areas where costs are not really changing much. Some are changing a lot. We want to be conservative. We don't want to be overly conservative and really project high costs that just never came to fruition. Same thing with capital costs. There always seems to be a little bit of psychological inflation built into some numbers because we're just not sure what's going to happen. So we do have a capital equipment increase of about 5% per year. Our growth is about 1% per year, and it's interesting. There's a institute in University of Utah, Kem Gardner Institute, and they publish demographics every few years. And I pulled up the 2022 demographic population estimates and showing Grand County growing at about 1%, pretty slow. It kicks up a little bit towards the end of the 10-year period here, and then it kind of drops off. Now, that's for Grand County. Obviously, what happens in Moab might be a little bit different, and that's where a lot of your customers are located. So again, we're being a little conservative here in our growth. On some of our scenarios, we're looking at loans on facilities. And
Todd, I have
mainly
a quick question.
Sure.
So, we're not just looking at Grand County though. We're looking at the growth of San Juan as well, since we're so close to them. Is that correct?
Well, this one just includes Grand County, but San Juan, I believe, was of similar growth as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I can double check that. So we have, there are two, oh, was there a question?
Didn't think so.
Mhm.
Nope,
We have
sorry, go ahead.
we have two facilities in our capital plan, or building related facilities. And on one of our scenarios, we're going to look to bond finance or loan finance those at a 10-year loan, just to see what it would look like if we can smooth out those payments. And also we have a number of pieces of capital equipment that are pretty substantial in cost, and cash financing them up front requires a lot of cash up front, which means higher increases up front. So if we can lease them to an extent, and here we just chose a basic lease term of 5 years of 6%, and the lease term varies between the type of equipment it is. I think the dozers we have at 8 years and everything else is at a 5 year. It might be a little bit longer than that. But again, we just wanted to be able to smooth out those one-time capital projects to where we can help mitigate revenue adjustments, but still be able to fund the capital improvement program. We have some reserve targets and debt service coverage requirements. We're starting out at 60 days of O&M, and that's traditional. What we want to do is maintain a certain amount of money in the bank should there be a huge expense that comes up. Maybe a couple of trucks go down and we need to repair them quickly and it wasn't in the budget. You're able to draw on this money. We're starting out with 60 days. We're going to transition to 90 days just because we're trying to get everything back on track here. Another one is capital depreciation or depreciation expense, capital reserve. And we typically look at using 1 year's depreciation expense because from an accounting perspective, every year your equipment and project and capital infrastructure depreciates each year. So we want to kind of replace that every year and have something in the bank that, in case there is an emergency capital expenditure, you can dip into this kind of capital reserve. Most importantly, debt service coverage or DSC of 1.25 times your debt service payment. That's just required by the covenants. We can't get out of that. And so our rate revenue adjustment strategy is we obviously want to maintain our debt service coverage and reserve levels for all the scenarios. We want to minimize our rate shock through the balanced use of rate increases, loans, and leases to kind of balance that out. And we want to minimize the delay of capital equipment expenditures. We really have a good capital program here. And the idea is we stay on top of that, we can really minimize any sort of unforeseen operational costs as a result of a truck going down. So by staying on this equipment repair and replacement schedule, we can help really minimize rate increases in the long term.
Todd,
So let's look, yeah.
let me cut in a second. Getting back to what LJ said, and there's been a couple other comments.
Okay.
There's definitely a belief that San Juan, which is a very small county, but they've got some development right on the border.
Okay.
You might want to double check that 1%. It's not going to be huge, but there's definitely some fairly large subdivisions planned.
Well, we'll take anything we get. We can certainly do that, and it would definitely help probably bring down these increases a few percentage points. Be great to bring them down even lower.
Okay.
Todd,
So
this is Terry. Hey, Todd, I just looked up on the chem growth for San Juan, and through 2030, they're forecasting a 1% growth rate, but it goes up after that.
After what year again? After 2030?
Yes, after 2030, I believe. I'll drop it
Okay.
into the chat for
Terry's on.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Hello, this is Mary. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a little more complicated than that because San Juan County itself will probably grow at 1%. But the percent that's going to be growing in North San Juan County is greater because they're almost expecting a decrease in population in the other areas. So I think the increase in San Juan County, I don't know how we could, take that out of the rest of the county, but it's expected. That's where so many houses are going up. They're building a great big resort.
Oh, wow.
A
Okay.
huge resort. There's going to be a lot of growth and they will be using our services.
Okay. I think we can find a way to kind of parse that out and get a representative growth for that area rather than taking the full county increase. So yeah, LJ, Mike, I'll work with you on that. I'll get some more information on that. We can work on how we want to incorporate the growth, because maybe then it is a little bit for the customers you serve there. Maybe that growth is going to be greater than the 1%. Because you don't serve you don't serve all of that county, do you?
No, but
Okay.
definitely the northern part. And Mary, if you have a good contact in San Juan, I would appreciate getting that information so that we can contact them.
One way we can look at this is what percentage of your customers are in San Juan County, and we take that percentage, increase that growth by this higher growth in northern San Juan. But we can look at it and we'll see how that impacts our cash flows. So that's good news. That's good to hear.
Well, I think the point is that we're not entirely sure. We're just seeing that they're going to be building, a bunch of these kinds of, resort homes, because the border between Grand and San Juan is so close to us, and we would be servicing that area. So I think we definitely need to do some research and find out, because we can't say, how many homes I don't know how many homes they're building. We just can see that they're doing construction.
Okay, will do. We will look into that. That's interesting. Thank you very much. Was there another question?
The only other question I have is I want to make sure that we're already looking at, and I know that we've talked about this before, but I just want to make it clear to the board, that we have a lot of equipment that we already need to replace. So you've mentioned that our plan for the future of replacing vehicles every 3 to 5 years when it's needed. But unfortunately, most of the vehicles that we have are past that point of needing to be replaced. So how have we put that into this whole scenario?
Well, those are the 5-year capital plan that Mike provided had a lot of those, a lot of that capital equipment in there. And I also looked at the replacement schedule that Mike provided. And there were 3 additional ones that were further out in the past the 5 years, and I incorporated them as well. But I think there's about 7 or 8 capital equipment items that we've included here, both looking at cash financing as well as looking at leases. And I was listed in the assumptions on the memo. I listed all the equipment items that we were looking at, either funding with cash or leases. And I think it's 7 or 8 of them, quite a bit.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was apparent. Thank you.
No, good point. Thank you. Okay. So here are the financial plan scenarios. Number 1, really looking at a one-time increase in 24 and 25. Essentially, another way to say this is ripping the Band-Aid off and just let's get everything at a level to where we can start funding all of our projects, O&M, everything right out the gate, 100% in the first and second year. Following those years, it would be smaller inflationary increases. And I believe on this scenario, it's 1%. So after 2026, or in 2026 through 2033, it's 1%. The challenge with this scenario is that because you have such large upfront increases, you really begin to build a lot of cash reserves. Not necessarily bad, but from a standpoint of if you don't have a program set aside to have a use of those funds, it could be detrimental just from a customer perspective, looking at this potential large balance. And we'll be able to fully fund a capital program with our operating revenues, non-operating revenues, any sort of carryover reserves, anything left over in the bank in a year. So we won't have to lease or bond finance anything. We still have our debt service payment we need to make on the existing debt. Number 2 is equal annual increases in 24 and 25, again, smaller increases in 26 and 23. But these increases are a little bit lower than scenario 1, because now instead of cash financing that capital equipment that's in the first couple of years, we're now going to lease that. So it gives us allows us to take a little bit of a breath to not have to ramp up our revenues so quickly to fund those capital equipment and the building, which is in 24 and 25. So gives us a little bit more runway of rate increases. So we're able to tamp down on the revenue adjustments a little bit here. And I'll let you know what the revenue increases are here in just a moment too. And scenario 3 is lower increases in 24 and 25. But the flip side to this is that we're not fully funding your capital program. We're funding the leased vehicles, and that's about it. And we're funding the building remodel or the new building that's going up in 24 and 25. But we're really not funding anything else. No repaving or anything like that. We're barely funding the leases we have, and we're funding the buildings. So there's that one risk there. We're not really staying on top of the capital program, but yet we're able to keep the rates a little bit lower early on. So let's take a look at what that looks like from a graphical standpoint here. When we compare these, there's a number of ways we can do this, but what I wanted to do here is show you the 3 scenarios. I'm going to show you what happens to the rates for a city customer, 1 time a week, 96-gallon cart under each of these scenarios. So under scenario 1, we started at $20. In 2024, our rate increase will get us to $30. So it'll go from $20 to $30 per month. And then another increase to get us to $35.40. And that equates to a 50% increase followed by an 18% increase. Scenario 2, a little bit lower. You can see it's a little bit below. $20 in 2023, it'll jump to $26 in 24, and then $33.80. And then out close to that $38.07 in 2033. So these all kind of have us end up in the same place at the end of the study period. It's just how are we going to get there? And this last one here has the lowest revenue adjustment, but we're also funding the lowest amount of capital. Start out at $20, it jumps to $23, and then $26.45, and then on up to that higher rate in 2033. So basically, with us, scenario 1, we're really jumping those rates in the first couple of years. And scenario 2 and scenario 3 tamps down that a little bit. Now, when we talk about the rate increases here, and I mentioned 50% and 80%, 18%, that applies to all customers, all the services you provide. So we would just take 50% times the current rate structure you have. That would apply to all these different scenarios. So that's kind of what it looks like. So let's see what it looks like from a cash flow perspective. Scenario 1, okay, we have a graph here. There's a lot of lines and bars and colors here. So the bars here represent your expenditures, and the different colors on those are your cost of goods sold, which is the landfill. And you have your O&M expenses, that's the light blue. We have our capital, never mind that adjusted capital there. And we have our debt service payments, and those are pretty constant through the study period, and that's on your existing debt service. We have our green line, which is revenue with no increases. So if you're not going to increase revenues at all, you can see that green line slices right through those bars, meaning you're spending more, you have more expenditures than you do revenue. So with the revenue, with the increases is that light blue line. And that shows we're staying above those blue bars. In some years, the blue bar is slightly above the blue line. In most years, the bars are below the blue line. In the instance where the bars are above the blue line, it means you're drawing down some reserves because your revenues are not quite meeting your expenditures. So you're going to draw down some reserves. But in those future years, the space between those bars and that blue line represents your building up reserves, and quite a bit in this scenario because we have a large increase up front. So you can see here, here's what the ending balance and target reserves look like. So we have the 2 colored bars there. Those are the 2 different types of reserves we were talking about, the minimum amount of reserves we want to maintain, and they're broken out between the operating and capital reserve. But more importantly, here's this ending balance line. You can see that it just really shoots up after 2025. It really starts getting some momentum. And by 2033, we're well over $8 million. And again, that's just a compounding effect of having a 50% increase in 2024. So the benefits here are is that one or 2 increases and you're done, you're going to fund everything, but you have to worry about that ending fund balance. Here's your capital funding, what you're funding on an annual basis. You're funding it all with cash. You can see there's 2 other colors down there, bond funded and lease funded. There's nothing there for those because we're cash financing everything. And some other metrics here are 50% increase and 18% increase followed by those inflationary increases throughout the rest of the study period. And our debt service coverage, we're completely meeting that just fine in 2024 through 33. So this is scenario 1. Key takeaways are large increases up front. You're going to build a large balance. You're going to cover your annual expenditures and build reserves there, and you're able to cash fund your entire capital program. let's skip on to scenario 2 here. Okay. Looks kind of the same here, but the blue line's not quite as high above the bars there. So we are building reserves, but not quite at the clip we were in the previous scenario. And so also we're building reserves as well, but again, not quite at the same clip. We're at about, I can't see that because that's in my way here. We're at about $5 million ending balance in 2023 right here. Whereas in the previous scenario, we were pushing $8 million. So a big difference over the life of the study period here. Oops. There we go. Here's our annual funding by type here. Same capital improvement program. These colors just denote those projects that are being leased. And this just shows the total dollars that we're leasing. So in 24 and 25, there's quite a few leased facility equipment, apologize, and two bond financing things in 2024 and 25, and the rest is cash financed. So when we see these leases, the orange there is actually going to be spread out over a couple of years. But here we're just showing that this is the year that capital equipment was going to be funded. We're going to fund it through a lease, and we're going to kind of amortize that over 5 years. And looking at the annual rate increases, we're looking at 30% and 30%, followed by 1.5 after that. So a bit lower. Cumulatively, they're about the same as the first scenario, but at least it's 30 and 30 and not this 15 and 18. And
Can
debt
I
service.
cut in for just a split second?
Yeah,
You mentioned the bond. I want to reiterate to everyone that everything we're looking at is based on no change in our present bond structure, bond financing, because that would be, we're planning on a worst case scenario basically here. So
thank you, Mike. I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
I just want to reiterate that.
And
everyone-
when oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, every one of your graphs show 2031 is a kind of a critical year. Is that like the longevity of our equipment, or what's the 2031 bump about?
There is a bulldozer that I pulled from the replacement schedule for $1 million in 2031. That's what that one is.
I
And
see. Okay.
yeah, so, and you're right. When I say bonds, I probably should use the term loan, because these facilities, this is a building and we're going for a 10-year loan. It's not the same thing as a revenue bond, which is what you have now. You know, that you have to do all those things to get the revenue bond, whereas this is more of a mortgage, if you will. And we just have it at 10 years, which is pretty conservative. You might be able to do 20, not sure. So we want to just recognize that there's a possibility you could finance that that building, which is about $800,000 rather than cash financing. So we're getting better here with the revenue adjustments, assuming some more risk here, because you are maybe issuing a loan for that building, and you're also leasing facilities or leasing equipment over the study period. Scenario 3 gives us our best choice in terms of revenue adjustments. You can see that we've got our blue line, and we are meeting our revenues, meeting expenditures over the study period. And we have the graph's a little more crunched here because our revenue adjustments are a bit lower. And we're building reserve, but here the reserve target at the end is about $4 million. So we're meeting our targets each year by the end of the study period. So we're not collecting excess amounts of cash over the study period. Now, this looks a little different here. What we're showing here is, what this shows here is not necessarily the capital projects. It shows the lease payments that you're going to have each year. And that's how much you're funding each year on these lease payments. And this is basically showing, based on these revenue adjustments, this total amount is what you'll be able to fund each year over the study period. So quite a bit less. You are funding a lot of your capital equipment on leases here, but there's a whole lot of other capital related items on there. And we are funding the building facility as well, but the payments on that don't show up here in the CIP. It's more of a debt service or more of a loan payment, which is up above in that first graph. So definitely you can maintain a capital equipment repair and replacement strategy, but you're foregoing some of these other capital expenditures you have that you'll need to tend to. So we've got 15, 15, 10 for the revenue adjustments here, followed by some smaller revenue adjustments in the future. The challenge here is that cumulatively, the revenue adjustments here are going to be not almost as high as the other ones, because we have a lot of adjustments each year, and just the cumulative impact of these mini adjustments each year affect that. And we're meeting our debt service coverage across the study period. So there's a balance here of the amount of financial risk the authority wants to take on in terms of leasing and issuing loans for that building. Leases are very common, so it's not necessarily a huge risk there, but you also miss out on potentially some other capital repair and replacement that are not related to equipment. So here's what the rates would look like each year based on each scenario for city, and we did county as well. And you can just see the trend there of $20 up to $36.47. We only went through 2028 just to keep make sure it didn't get too small there. And we have the county as well. But more importantly, what's important to many is, well, how do you compare to other communities? And so we did our survey. We really looked at, again, a lot of Western Colorado communities that were smaller, more isolated, and just didn't have the economies of scale, and to see at what their fees were like. And so we've got all these communities here. The blue lines obviously represent the different scenarios as well existing for Canyonlands. Apologize. I'm in a town boardroom at the town of Fraser, and there's a bunch of noise behind me, so I apologize. You can see that Canyonlands, and I've got a color wrong on there. It says Craig, Colorado, but Canyonlands is right below that at $20. And you can see as we look at the different scenarios, you go towards the top. But one thing to keep in mind here is that we're looking at 2023 rates. The rates we're proposing here for 2024. So we have no idea what these other communities are going to do. I do know that Craig has been underfunding their solid waste utility for some time. I did some work there years ago, and that was always a challenge. But I also know that Montrose does do an increase on a regular basis as well. So with the increases, even scenario 2 or scenario 1, these colors just didn't work out here, did they? Scenario 1 or scenario 2, not off the charts in comparison to others. And we did look at some other Utah communities in here as well. So this gives some perspective on where your rates would be headed in comparison to other utilities. And again, we don't know what other utilities are doing. Some might be getting subsidized from taxes, or just may not be meeting their repair and replacement requirements and degrading their fleet. Who knows? There's just so many things can be happening. So a couple of conclusions and considerations is there's discussions with the city on an upgraded agreement with the city. Do you want to delay the purchase or lease of new equipment? May increase your operating cost with more breakdowns and repairs. What's the appropriate balance of debt financing, leasing, and rate revenues? How do you find that balance? What's the best balance for the authority to fund capital equipment and capital projects? And finally, what's the probability of getting more favorable terms on this existing debt, the refunding? We hope to get better terms come next year, but with interest rates, we just don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of things to consider around these scenarios, and I just want to throw those things out there, that all these would impact the decision and then the amount of revenue adjustments that you do want to move forward with. So that concludes everything. Hopefully, this provides some perspective on getting the authority back on track to be able to refund those bonds in June and get the most favorable rate.
Good food for thought. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Todd. Does anyone have any questions for him?
I got one real quick. What was the amount that you were referring to, a building facility? Is that
There's a building and a roofer, but there's two costs, one in 24 and 125. The total is $850,000. And going to the weeds here, when we looked at bond finance or taking a loan out for that, we're only loan financing about 85% of it. We would cash finance the other 15. We wouldn't, try to loan finance the entire thing, just trying to be conservative again on that. But yeah, it was $800,000. If it was a few years out, that could change the profile a little bit of revenue adjustments, because that's a pretty big chunk of your capital program in the first couple of years. And the same thing with the equipment, but it seems like the equipment is pretty urgent. There's an urgent need for some of that equipment.
So since we've got that new piece of equipment out there that we're using, is the building still getting beat up as much as it was, or are we seeing a little bit improvement as far as operators?
That new piece of equipment actually got here at 9:30 this morning.
Oh, we haven't. I
Um,
know it was in use the last
Can't
couple
tell
of
us
weeks.
yet? Come on.
I
You had a whole day.
I should have let everybody know. But yeah, it finally got here this morning. We were kind of, the last week or so, we were kind of like, okay, where is it?
Yeah,
But it's here and we had a formal training this morning, so it'll officially go into use tomorrow. So we can't answer that question yet.
okay. We're hoping though,
We're definitely open.
it won't be as hard on the building as the old one was.
Yeah, and it will extend the
Yes.
time before we have to replace the building, yes.
Okay, good, good.
With the buildings. It's past its due. Yes,
Anyway.
100%, yes.
And so my takeaway here is I'll look into those growth numbers from San Juan County and see if that might tip the scales, no pun intended, a little bit on those revenue adjustments. And Mike, we get that sorted out. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Apologize if there was noise in the background for running around getting ready for another board meeting. So if any more feedback, whatnot, just let Mike know, and I'm sure Mike will send it my way, and we'll continue to work on this. Whoa, a couple more things we have to do. One is the design of rates. And so what we've done here today is look at how much revenue, how much money do you need to fund the expenditures? The next big part of this is the rate design. And that is, how do we properly and proportionately allocate the cost to each of the different customers and to each of the different services you have, making sure that it really does cost $20 to pick up a residential cart, 96-gallon cart one time a week. And so that's the rate design. So although we have an overall increase, we might select a 20% or a 50% or a 30%. When we get to the rate design, it's possible that the residential single pickup, one pickup a week might only go up 5%, but a commercial might go up 20%, just based on our cost allocation study. So we're not quite done yet. And that just makes things a little complicated because we talk about, well, it's a 30% increase, but why is residential only going up 3%? It's all about cost allocation. The other things Mike mentioned about the salary survey, we're putting some things together, looking at what are other communities paying for certain types of operators. And we've got some information that we actually did in Florida for, part of it was for Disney, but we've got some other information just looking at what's a competitive pay for operators, because that makes up a majority of your staff, and how might that change your salaries and wages going forward. I do know you're doing a salary and wage survey in December or something, so we're trying to complement that a little bit higher level. So those are the next steps for us. And so hopefully when we come back to you next time, we'll finalize this, but we'll also have a look at what might the rates look like when we do this cost allocation. And we would still recover the amount of money you need. It would just be shifted depending on the cost to provide those different services to the different customer classes.
And I'm sure you recognize that the business situation here in Moab, fluctuates so much with incoming visitors and
Yeah.
tourists. Commercial is a lot more, residential is pretty consistent, but
Yeah.
commercial has definitely got some fluctuations to it.
I do a lot of work in the water and sewer side of things, and working with Breckenridge and here in Fraser, Colorado. All
Yep.
of that just kind of mucks the water up a little bit because it's just so unusual compared to what a normal town or city would see in terms of that type of demand and requirement for service. So yeah, that's gonna be one thing we're gonna look at, and we're gonna build that into the cost allocation. And again, those may not be appropriate. You may want to stick with just an across the board increase, but we want to present to you options for you to make a decision on what's the best way to go for the authority.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Nothing else, Mike. I'll
Thank
catch up with you
for bringing
soon.
us
And
up, Todd. Thank you.
excellent. Talk to everyone soon. Thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
All right.
Very interesting study. Very interesting.
So,
Let's see.
I guess the question is, when do we discuss this more? Do we discuss this now today, or we wait for them to come back?
I think, I was thinking along those same lines just 2 minutes ago. I think we ought to have a workshop where we're all present and in the same room if possible, to look at it hard and ask the hard questions. I'm wondering if we need to wait until after, the elections. We will be having a new board makeup. We don't necessarily have to, I'm just reminding everybody that. But yeah, I was gonna suggest we plan out a workshop hopefully within the next month to 6 weeks.
Well, the only issue with that, and I'm sorry, but
Okay.
Nick and I, we need to.
That's a
we
good
need to
point,
make
the
some
budget time.
decisions. We need to make some decisions from the information that we're getting from them, because Nick and I need to do the budget, and we need to do, make sure that the budget, so we at least need to look at the possibility of rate increases. That's the biggest thing, because when we do our budget for next year, we have to have enough of a feedback from the board as to where we're going to go with those rate increases. And that, we'll discuss that more in the next agenda item. But I hate to push it off anymore, because, we're already in a time crunch, in my opinion, as far as like the budget goes. So that would be just my input.
No, you are right. We've got the budget situation to deal with. I wasn't thinking that through earlier.
This is Mary. When are we going to know more about if we're going to be able to redo our bond? Where's that on the time frame?
I was gonna bring that up during my report, but I met with Alex and Brian again. Well, I talked to him on the phone. We're still on path unless we make changes or decide otherwise, to utilize the call date. And that is coming up in June. And the call date is a pre-approved, pre-agreed upon time when you can discuss renegotiating the situation. It's much less complicated and it sends up much less red flags if we can wait till then.
Now, wait till when again?
It's June, I believe, right before our $835,000 payment is due.
So we're not going to know whether or not we're going to be able to redo our bond until June. Is that what I understand?
Unless we take drastic measures. Exactly. That's why I brought up the fact that everything we're looking at is based on our current conditions.
I understood that. That's why I wanted to know what we want to do. I'm wondering if we want to, I agree with LJ that waiting is not something we can really do, not with the projections and such. I don't know if we want to do a doodle poll or whatever they're called and come up with some times that the majority of the board can get together. And not this week, well, I won't be there this week, but starting the 1st of November, would that work, LJ? If we had a workshop and kind of came up with
that still puts it pretty tight, because the board meeting in November is the 22nd, no, 15th, I guess. Yeah. Third Wednesday. So it's the 15th of November. We would have to have a budget in place to approve at that point. That's going to have to be a public meeting to present to the public and to the board, and then it would be voted on in the December meeting. So we have to have that information in place by that meeting, by the 13th, actually. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm just saying that it puts it really tight on Nick and I. Do you disagree, Nick?
No, that's the time frame. So the way the budget process works, we're looking at, a first quick look today. Then a more in-depth look on the 15th of November. And then any adjustments or public comment inclusions would be in the December board meeting, we vote to approve it.
And we're not gonna really renew the city contract until next year, or we're talking about, is that's gonna be part of the budget, or how are we looking at that as far as the city contract?
We'll have to go in with some assumptions in the budget. And as that city contract gets closer, if there are major differences, then we would do a budget revision in 2024 for 2024.
Okay,
I think you nailed it right there, Nick. There is so much that's gonna be an assumption in this coming year, which is not a good feeling. At all, let's be honest. The city contract, the bond, and our potential increases.
Right.
I'm-
The budgeting process is in terms of, the state statutes and whatnot, it's primarily an expense side budget. So you're budgeting, you're going to spend this much money next year. If you spend more than that, you need to do a budget revision. If you spend less than that, then you're okay because you're under budget. But in terms of this budget for over the next month or so, we want to pretty much nail down what our operating expenses are going to be. And then we can do the assumptions on the revenue side based on what we know at this point in time, or what we feel we want to go for at this point in time. So in terms of this budget, LG and I and the district staff will nail down the operating cost aspect of it.
And to our benefit, we would throughout the year make the assumption, as Mike liked to say, that we will continue with the city contract based on the current rate, because that would be beneficial to us if we do that. Because it would be
Right.
wherever that rate could go up, if we renegotiate the contract, right? But isn't the contract due November? I mean, isn't it due in June also?
It is also due in June, but
Yeah.
if it did go up and our expenses went up, then we would have to do a revised budget. at
Right,
that point. But that's half the year, so we have to go
Uh-huh.
into January, we have to go into basically the end of December with a budget that is including that cost.
Speaking of the contract, and I was gonna mention this in my report, had my quarterly call with the city this week, and basically they want to wait till after the elections. And
Right.
then we'll get after it a little harder.
okay,
I've got to go through the contract and basically X out the gibberish,
yeah,
to put it bluntly, and submit it to Carly. So just an FYI there real quick. I don't want us to diverge.
yes.
Mary's raised her hand.
Yes,
Mary.
I could work it out that I could come to a meeting on the 27th, the 30th or 31st of this month. How's the rest of the board?
In the workshop, since we're just dealing with the operating costs, how much are we gonna be able to contribute to that workshop, because the operating costs are pretty much a set cost, are they not?
Well, don't we have to have a workshop to determine if they're going to plan their budget on scenario 1, 2, or 3? Is that what I understand we need to figure out?
That would be helpful, yeah,
Yes.
so we would know what kind of a rate increase we're looking at. And to your answer, Kevin, no, operating costs are not necessarily a set amount. They do fluctuate a lot. It's based a lot on not just fuel costs, employee costs, but also repair costs, which fluctuate, so.
The biggest components of that is going to be looking at the labor, looking at the current rates, any projected increases, and then also the benefit package. So those two areas are a big part of the budget. So that's any input that this board or this district staff has on that would be very useful.
So in order to answer Mary's question, I'm available the 27th, the 30th and the 31st of this month to meet.
I would be available just the 27th, 30th, 31st. I'll be in Salt Lake.
I am supposed to be on a plane on the way to St. Louis,
The 27th through.
the 27th. But that, I don't know if I could cancel that at all. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't mean to make things more difficult. I certainly could remote in depending on the time. Thanks for the suggestion.
I will be home the evening of the 25th, so the 26th, I could do it as well. If that would work for you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do it in the morning, that would be fantastic. Nick, LJ, I've got I guess because so much is on assumptions. And it's almost a fact that in 3 to 6 months, things are gonna look a little different one way or the other. And we're probably gonna have to adjust the budget anyway. I mean, it's just a fact. If we had some sort of assumptions agreed upon tonight, would that allow us to move the budget forward?
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. Yep. And to reiterate what Nick said earlier, the important thing to remember is it's not income that we need to worry about, it's expenditures. So, because that's when we have to make an amended budget.
So again, everything that we're worried about is on the income side of things. Not that-
Right, so if we do like even just a general, okay, let's just split it down the middle and go with scenario 2 for the budget right now, then that would be beneficial because we'd have that kind of a guideline to go forward with. Is kind of
That
what
is kind of what I was trying to work towards. So thanks for putting it in better terms, LJ. If we have to jump, 6 feet high, let's do it. But I don't want us to put in a lot of hurry up and get it done if we're only gonna end up redoing it in 3 to 6 months. Does that make any sense to everyone?
I'm
I
comfortable with that idea of building the budget on scenario 2. I'm
Okay.
comfortable with that idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as it doesn't commit us to scenario 2, I think we need to explore each of them as a
Well,
board,
that
that
would
workshop.
Give us
eventually
more
anyway.
time
Yeah.
to
Right.
take it. This was a lot of information tonight, a lot
Yeah.
of good information.
Yeah.
I know I need to take it in more. I was aware of part of it, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Because it's very common to have to open up budgets again, so, but we need to build the budget, so I would go use number 2, and then as we move forward and we get more information, we can determine which one we really want to use and go on from there.
Yeah,
That way,
the primary differences between 1, 2, and 3, the scenarios is, again, like Mike had mentioned, it's the revenue side, but there is some slight capital differences between them, which would be reflected either in interest or debt service payments. So again, the
Exactly.
majority of the expenses between the 3 scenarios is pretty much the same. So coming up with, just preliminarily using scenario 2, that tells me what I need to do on the revenue side.
Right. Of course, we want scenario 1. We want scenario 1 to work, but scenario 2, let's go with it for
Okay.
creating this budget. Yeah.
I'd like to comment as a representative of Castle Valley with regard to, I think it was scenario 1. And that would be that our rates would be going up from 24, and this would be like the first couple of years, 24 to 36. And I would think that that would be something that we would want to discuss, because I'm already aware of some people with the latest rate increase in Castle Valley who have chosen to carry to increase the traffic at the transfer station. So we need to be aware of those things.
Right, yeah.
And one of the things that we, and maybe it wasn't made apparent to you, Diane, but we have definitely discussed that. And that is one of the things that Todd mentioned, where this is just a generic percentage that we totally realize that there are certain avenues of income that we do not want to increase. But so it's an average across the board where some of them wouldn't get increased, others may get increased more, especially commercial was the point being.
But
But we-
also,
And so the overall effect would still be like that 30% or whatever, the 50% increase.
Exactly.
But so the net effect would be, but it would be distributed less uniformly across each
right,
sector, right? Commercial,
Absolutely.
residential.
We have talked that we'd be looking at a much more increase in commercial. Hopefully not touching roll off because we feel we're already reaching a boundary there. So yeah, there's gonna be some balancing going on quite a bit.
and then also the discussion about, the county. We really don't have, I mean, we have numbers in the county, but not everyone in the county is on a collection system, this is Castle Valley, this is Moab, county, I mean, outside of the city. Are we going to talk with the county and say, we want everybody on, we want everybody to pay their share? Because they're being picked up, or else they're taken to the transfer station, or they're putting it in a wash. But, everyone should be billed. If they're living in the county, we should have revenue from that collection.
Well, if we're driving out to Castle Valley to pick up 10 poly carts,
Yes,
it costs us X amount of money. If we're gonna go out there and pick up 20 poly carts, then we get that revenue and it offsets the operating cost to go out there and get that.
exactly.
Economies get, that is something that is gonna be a tough decision for the county.
Yeah,
Definitely. Myself, this is just me talking. I do think all property owners should be paying something to help with the upkeep of the landfills. Regardless of whether they think they use it or not, they are throwing away something somewhere that's gonna end up there.
that's right.
Well, and you know what? I thought it was interesting that when we raised the rates the last time, that my black garbage bag that I carried to the transfer station did not change from $1. There was our opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, to have this type of contribution come in at a more reasonable, equitable rate, and it did not change.
Yeah, so did we raise the
Well-
transfer station collection for one gap? We need to
We
look at
did
that.
not, and part of that is because we're looking at the fact that it costs us more gas to go out to Castle Valley or to rural areas. So therefore, if you're spending the gas, you're spending extra money to bring your own garbage in for $1. So we felt that it was not right to raise that money, and that was our thinking behind that.
Good point.
I don't make an extra trip to Moab to bring my garbage in. I come in and I do everything I need to do in one trip.
So
Efficient.
$5 a bag.
Well, I can appreciate
50
that,
cents a
Diane.
bag.
I'm just saying that, you're spending the extra money on gas to come here anyway. So it just didn't feel right to raise it, up to $2 for people that do come in and bring it. So.
And I
Well-
guess here's my opportunity to also review with folks that, while we may have the revenue to pay for pickup here in Castle Valley, there is an incredible amount of space between my trash cans and the end of my drive. And as an aging population, there's no way that people in Castle Valley are going to be able to be mobile enough to get their trash cans out to wherever the trash pickup is. So that it's a catch-22. It's a bag of worms.
Yeah, and in this bag of worms, I mean, I'm out right by the entrance of Arches National Park, and there's I picked them up, 2 garbage bags full of diapers and all kinds of crap, right? That someone had just chucked out of their car, man, on the way, I mean, right by a national park. I couldn't believe it. We were taking some photographs over there the other day, and I could not drive away from it. I had to go get some garbage bags and pick it up myself. It was just something else. So, some people don't have any clue, do they?
They do what they have to do, I guess.
Yeah. So on our agenda, we were preliminary budget, WIP. Do we need to, are we in the middle of that discussion now?
Oh, Mary's raised her hand.
Savannah or Jessica, can you go ahead and pull up that preliminary budget? And then I'll
Mary's
let
got a
Nick
hand
take
up.
over.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hold on a sec, Mary's got a question.
maybe I can preempt what Mary's gonna say, but I think we still need to, we don't need to schedule the time for a workshop to discuss these scenarios right now, but we should still plan to pick a date to discuss these scenarios. And it doesn't have to be quite as urgently for budgetary reasons, but we
Right.
still need to do that. Is that what you were about to say, Mary?
Or does this need I don't think we need a motion.
No.
I don't think so. No, this is preliminary discussion.
I see she raised a hand, so
Got her hand up, we can't hear her.
Oh,
We can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry, I didn't tap. I apologize, I didn't tap. I have looked at the rest of the agenda and I am on a time frame.
Okay.
And so I guess if we need to move to the action item so that you have me here to vote on it. Otherwise, if with the quorum, I don't see anything else on the agenda that I just really wanted to make sure I was there for the presentation. The rest of the agenda looks like I could, it wouldn't, I'm not as concerned to be part of it. Is there anything I need to know or before I leave?
just, I think, Chad was suggesting that there be a workshop, but it's not necessarily as urgent.
Oh, I think we should do a doodle poll of some
Okay.
scenarios. If we want to do it after the election or even after the new year might be easier at that point. I don't know the urgency you guys you guys can, but I do think a workshop is really, really important.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think there's, LJ, I don't think there's anything that she absolutely has to be on or left on the agenda, do you?
No, I don't.
And I read through the agenda and thank you very much for all of your hard work. And I found the presentation sobering, but also hopeful. So thank you. And I'll
Thank you.
see you guys in a week.
Safe
And
travels.
I'll send you I'll take a picture of my ID and send it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a wonderful
And I'll send you
evening.
information about who to contact in San Juan County.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Okay, back to Nick, you wanted to present?
Nick, did you want me to pull up the preliminary budget and share it, or were you wanting to do that?
Yeah, go ahead and bring that up, please. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think it's on page 37 of the packet. There we go. So what, again, this budgeting process, it kind of goes in 3 stages. This is the first stage is a real quick, high level look And then the second stage is also obviously the November meeting, and then the third stage is the final approval of a budget. So look, using Raftelis's figures is what we just quickly are doing this 10,000-foot view of the budget based off their presentation. So what we're going to do is parse this out and break it down by the cost centers like we did last year. So we have a budget for each cost center, and those all roll up to the district level budget. And so again, using the figures, these preliminary figures that Raftelis has out there, that's kind of what I'm using as the jump off point. And then what I'll do is break these numbers into the various cost centers from an expense and a revenue standpoint, and then see how it shakes out. There could be categories that are higher or lower. Again, this is a first look. So as we scroll down, this budget, it pretty much breaks it down by the line item categories that we have. And so what LJ and I and the district staff will be doing is looking to break these into the cost center components, and then have a roll up to see how it shakes out. So again,
Everything in 2024 seems lower than 2023. Is that on purpose, or we're just? I mean, revenues and transportation revenues down. Is that what we're expecting, you think?
no,
think-
that's why I wanted to shake this down into the various components detail, and then see how it rolls up. Again, there might be figures that are low in one line and higher in another. So yeah, like you're seeing there, yeah, that's, to me, looking at this first pass, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
The transfer
Makes sense.
station should be flat or going up. But
Right.
the piece of that may be in another number on here, so that's why I want to go into more depth.
And part of it is, we took the numbers that Raftelis had in their presentation, and I think that was just from a partial year P&L, where without any projections out to the full year. So I think that's where they got some of their numbers from as well.
Okay.
So if you want to scroll down a little more. Yeah, keep going.
Keep going, please. Okay, so
So you got your total income, then you got cost of goods sold, which is the intercompany components. And then from there on down is the expense side. And that's the critical components of the budget is what does the board and the district staff see as being major expense items. Again, the district's expense makeup is primarily labor and benefits. And then repairs and maintenance and fuel are coming back around there as other major categories. So as we're working through this budget, if there's things that is desired or needed, please let us know in terms of maybe there's some sort of program fees that need to be included going forward with the new billing system. There are some monthly costs related to that, so we make sure that those are built in.
And just looking even at this page, like I think maybe the waste disposal and MRF tip fees are maybe reversed or something like that. Those are things that, we need to look at and fine tune for the next month's meeting.
Right. Scroll down a little more. Thank you. Yeah, and this is broken down by line item, which is very useful. It allows us to fine tune categories.
And again, on that one that we just passed, the Moab franchise fees, that's a possibility that maybe there'll only be half of that, or, whatever more than that, it could be double that, depending on what the outcome of the negotiations with the city contract comes, so.
Yeah, right. So in terms of initially putting the budget out there, we'll kind of keep it same store. We'll use the 6% that we currently have, but there could be opportunities for that to change. Professional services, this could be an area that the district and the board, in terms of what kind of professional service may be needed for the landfills in terms of permitting and whatnot. So we'll want definitely some input on engineering and costs like that, if those are
And-
gonna be variable year to
And
year.
those line items that are in the 2024 column that are highlighted in yellow, I already increased them a little bit from what was in Raftalis's presentation, because I knew that those were items that were going to be more than what they were putting in. So I've adjusted some of those. Like the contract labor, they put in way more than the 20,000, and I'm projecting that we probably won't spend. I mean, we spent a lot this year on contract labor, but I don't foresee us hiring anybody through contract labor again anytime soon, because if Helen stays, we would do the same thing like we did with Curtis, which is attempt to hire. And after that, we'd be fully staffed as far as the admin side goes. So we wouldn't need to have that large amount in the temp labor. Also, Chris had mentioned about the engineering. And I'm not sure that that's the right number that we need in there. I think we actually need a higher number for the engineering consulting, but I increased that because it was a lower number from Raftalis. So, and as well as the survey, I increased that as well.
Okay.
I completely agree. Engineering costs are gonna be. And they're not gonna go up, they're gonna be more because there's gonna be more service needed the next couple of years.
Mm,
And engineers aren't cheap. So.
right.
They were happy to inform us of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Proceed, sorry.
well, scroll down to the
I didn't pay anything for this.
Scroll down to the petroleum and lubricants. There we go. So this is another large area in terms of the fuel. Overall district expense going, again, it's labor, fuel, repairs and maintenance are your big variables. Then we go down into general operating supplies.
Fuel costs are amazing, right?
Yeah, they were generally doubled.
Scroll down a little more. Then you know the payroll and payroll benefits area. This is 40 to 50% of the district's cost.
And you see that yellow highlight in gym membership. I took that out because it's actually a wash. We don't pay, we pay up front and then the employees pay us back out of their paychecks for the membership. So we really shouldn't have that as an expense. It's really a wash.
Right.
And that would show up, the piece that the employee pays would show up in that line 7063 as part of the reimbursement or the contribution that employees make.
Mm-hmm.
Taxes. The unemployment taxes might go up slightly because they do raise the Utah tends to raise the ceiling every year. So it costs us more, even though the rate may stay the same, but the ceiling may go up. So that may go up slightly. So yeah, other payroll. Yeah, and this is the first blush look at the budget and what we'll run with it and break this down into its components and see what we are going to come up with.
Mhm.
I want to scroll down a little further. Other income, the 400,000 is the TRT tax. we did go in
Salary
and
of all the board members.
we, with the meeting with the county last, a month or so ago, we did request that we get more next year, but we'll, per purposes of this, until we know what that number is, we'll kind of use the same store number of the 400,000. Mineral leases. Now, the monthly amount has been fairly steady. The quarterly one, it's kind of been all over the board last year. We still haven't received what the amount was for the second quarter. I did do an assumption, but until I know exactly what that is, I'm not sure. We'll kind of just budget that as is. Scroll down a little more. These more of your fixed expenses, amortization and depreciation.
There's a big difference in your cash flow. What does that indicate?
That's the price increase amount that was further out near the top. Most of that,
Okay.
what you would expect with a price increase is that would flow to the bottom line, all things being equal. So
Okay,
again, this is a first look, but again, we'll fine tune that to see how that shakes out.
right.
If we go down to page 6 or page 7.
Yeah. Then we'll look at the 5-year capital schedule and make sure we got everything in there for what we want for 2024 and make sure that those items are in there for the capital pieces. The bond principal and interest, it stays fairly consistent over the next 2 years, and then it drops off a little bit in the ensuing years. But again, there's a defined schedule for that, so those could be exact numbers. And same with the other leases, loan, and payments. Those are on schedules, so those amounts can be input as they are determined for 2024.
Okay,
So yeah, again, that's a real quick first look. So we will, over the next few weeks, be fine tuning this and coming up with something that we can present at the November board meeting for, again, for the second look. So if there's
very good.
any questions, please let us know either now or just at any point in time we're available. And if you have any suggestions or items that need to be included, please let us know what those items be for 2024.
Definitely the board needs a raise.
50% pay raise.
Yeah, 50% raise. Well, thank you, Nick. Looks good. Looks very good.
Yeah, thank you, LJ, and the rest of the
And
staff.
LJ, exactly. Birthday girl. Okay, action item, review and approval of expenditures for the month of September 2023. We can't hear you, LJ.
Sorry. Okay, so obviously, again, as we've mentioned many times, payrolls are one of our biggest expenses, about 50% of our expenses. And the total expense for September was $258,457.36, and that includes benefits and employee advances. AMCS payments have increased the more that we are utilizing training and getting ready to go live. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, we're set to go live next month. And we had 2 invoices from them for a total of $51,051.51, which is an unusual number. And then we also paid out Nick for the second quarter, which included his time and travel for when he came for the audit last May. $5,505.28 to the Utah Government Trust for auto coverage, auto damage endorsement, and workman's comp insurance. We had $8,761 in repairs, service, and maintenance for our vehicles, which was actually less about $5,500 from the previous month. The total fuel cost, another of our huge expenses, was $32,112, and that was about $3,000 more than the previous month. Cost of single stream for September to take it up and process it was $2,611. We paid TAMS a little over $1,000 for e-waste disposal in September. The total expenditures were down in September from August, about $115,000.
Glad to pay you, Nick. Thank you.
Well, thank you. On a side note, I know some of you have asked, in terms of 2023, whether we need to do a budget adjustment or not. Right now, I'm seeing a trending that we're through September that we're $100K under budget. So I think we're okay right now, but once I've got everything in, and we're almost near the end of October, I'm keeping an eye on that. Right now, I don't see us needing to do a budget adjustment for 2023 at this point in time.
Great.
Not
Very
unless we get like huge increases in expenses anytime soon. So we're still
So,
good. Okay.
For this October through December, again, be very cost conscious and see if we can keep that variance as at 100K under budget and see if we can keep that through the end of the year.
Great. Wonderful.
May I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we approve the expenditures of the month of September 2023 in the amount of $388,723.76.
I believe Diane seconded that. I read her lips.
Okay.
Yeah, I seconded.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's do a roll call vote on that. Diane,
Yeah,
Chad,
Yes.
Kevin, yes. The minimum board that we have is here and we voted yes, so a motion approved. Staff reports. Take it away, Mike.
Alrighty. I'll try not to ramble on too long here. When I went to write this yesterday morning, things weren't looking as bright as I had hoped compared to other months come before you. But I think we're getting a grasp. We're definitely running into driver and truck issues again. We are losing one very dependable driver at the end of the month. He's put in his notice. And we're having an issue with another driver. He might not be able to drive. So we are hiring one next week. A rookie. We'll see how it turns out. The trucks, at first it was the two new trucks. Those have come back and seem to be doing fairly well. There's still a little bug or two that we'd like, but they're running and they're running pretty good. But we dipped back into having to use our last line of defense, basically. Two of our trucks are in the shop as we speak. One of the trucks is still being diagnosed and could possibly be a blown engine. We're hoping it's just the head gasket. The other one, the turbo is gone. So hopefully that one will be back up before the end of the week. And we'll know about the engine hopefully by tomorrow. But I'm in a little better spirits now than I was yesterday morning. So I feel like we're in a better place than when I wrote this. I will be honest, overtime is up the past month. It's a combination of truck issues and driver issues. I'm very disappointed in this at myself, but also at a few of the drivers. The plan to make some improvements that we've had without those two trucks, I don't feel comfortable making those adjustments. I don't want a double whammy to hit us, driver and truck issues, and then them learning new routes. So that will probably have to go on hold until after AMC is fully implemented, which we are going to go live no matter what, November 1st. We are not putting it off again. We're not extremely happy with AMCS at the moment. Part of it is the pressure. We're down to the last 2 weeks. They sent us not sent us, but we got a new project manager, which is a little unusual in the last month of a major project like this. I think she was brought on board to get us across the finish line. So we're definitely making her sweat a little bit. We're not happy, and we made it quite clear today that we are small, but we we expect customer service as well.
We're small, but we are mighty.
Yes, we are. Tire removal and recycling from Moab is underway. It's a slow process, but if you see the truck go through town, you'll see it. It's a large double that they pull out in the afternoon when they're full. I do not have a completion. We're just glad that they're staying steady.
Yeah.
About 2/3.
2/3, Chris thinks?
Wow.
2/3, that's good. I mentioned the financial advisor and Zion's earlier. Obviously, Raftalis, they gave it an in-depth presentation tonight. I thought they did a fairly good job. They put it out as best they could. Okay. We have advertised for the administrative director position. There's been a very slow amount of responses. We are going to advertise on the radio the next 2 weeks, as well as drivers the next 2 weeks. To see if we get any responses. I mentioned the meeting with Carly in the city this week. The only other thing I have to mention, the fall meeting of the Recycling Coalition of Utah is November 9th, and Jessica and myself will be in attendance.
Good.
I'm not exceedingly comfortable spending the money for this, but this is part of what needs to be done. We learn, we bring stuff back.
Where's it at this year?
It is in Sandy. Sandy. It is a 1 day in and out, but we will be in attendance. I mentioned earlier, I will be out of the office on Friday the 27th. If everything goes according to plan, and I'll be back on Monday.
How does talks in the city go?
I thought it went fairly well. We're discussing things and we're on the same page. I don't want to go into in-depth, especially there's a lot of negotiation to go on, as I mentioned earlier. The first step is to take the old contract, and there's so much in there that has never occurred or never should have even been in there.
Right.
To just get rid of the garbage part and concentrate. I think it's going good, and the possibility, I've got some plans. I just don't want to go into in-depth publicly at this time because there's just too much that could change.
Right.
But I got a good feeling of it overall.
Mike, I got a question about turbo. What is turbo in the truck? Is this something that's going to take 4 weeks to fix, or what is a turbo when it goes down? What's that?
Well, I'm not Joe Mechanical that far, but the bottom line is it doesn't run smoothly at all. It's very sluggish. It doesn't, you can't get up and move. Chris can probably explain it further.
That's it.
But you can't run it that way, is the bottom line. The truck is not going down the road like it's supposed to.
Is it the transmission? Is it the engine? Is it the, what is it?
Turbo on the engine.
Engine.
Yeah, the engine, Diane.
Yes, it has to do with the engine itself.
When your turbo blows on a diesel or any vehicle, what it does is it limits your power. It just brings your power down to about 30%. And it's really difficult to try and pull out on a busy street when you've got a turbo that's not functioning. So it kind of puts the drivers at risk and it puts anybody else around them at risk. And it takes a little bit of money to repair.
You remember the cost on that? Is it $400 for the rebuilding?
I think it was closer to $2,500.
I was in close.
Yeah.
A couple of $1,000 for a rebuilt one, Diane, to give you some idea. And a day or two to diagnose and a day or two to wait for the part and a day or two to get it done.
Yeah, about that.
Thank you. The other thing, are you advertising for the administrative person in our local newspaper? I have not seen anything.
We did not, we debated that just this morning. I had planned to, we put it, LJ, we put it on, what is that called? The workers.
It's
What's it
Department
called?
of Workforce Services. We
Mhm.
put
Thank
it
you.
on Facebook. We put it on our website. I mean, we could put it, and we talked about doing an ad, which we could possibly do in the local paper. The majority of people are gonna, they'll find it on Facebook, honestly, to be honest with you.
I don't agree with that. I've seen your advertisements for your drivers and it seems like you filled your drivers' positions with newspaper advertising. And so I don't know if you've got several options open. It seems like you could just do one ad with all the different things. And people on Facebook aren't people that read the newspaper. Not always.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. And most of the drivers that we have gotten in have been from KCYN or just word of mouth. It's not necessarily been from the newspaper ad.
Word of mouth could come from the newspaper as well.
I can look into that, Diane. That I did think of that last week. I'll be honest, the radio, I thought it might reach more people in a quicker amount of time.
You could do
with less,
both.
but we could, let me look at that tomorrow.
But we need somebody to fill in for LJ and we need to, not waste time. She needs, if she can help transition people into that position, that would be fabulous. She has a way of doing that and that would be very helpful if she was around to do that. And we need somebody.
Don't worry, she'll be around to do that.
We, I don't want to speak for LJ, but I've been talking with her about working remotely. She's got to take care of some family business in LA and she's going to be there a while. And helping us remotely, which could be a good transition so that she's not here where we can lean on her quite so much. And force us to, there's things that we need to do, everyone here needs to do that, to take up the slack. So I'm talking to her about that, staying on remotely to some sort of percentage until we can get it filled.
Any more questions for Mike? All right, Chris, you're up.
Let's see, so we had DEQ inspections for the second time this year at all facilities. It went fairly well. Our new inspector regulator is definitely a little bit more in depth on his inspections. And really, as far as the physical facilities, everything's went well. He's digging a little bit more into the administrative aspect of things. Quarterly reports were finished for the third quarter. Fees were paid. We also met with our initial consultation with the engineers. We did site tours of both Moab and Klondike. Kind of the first things that we're looking at from them is the life expectancy of Moab landfill. Because we're at a crossroads at Moab. And the decisions that we make at the Moab landfill will directly affect our need, and it goes back to that Raftalis as far as the building improvements. The quicker we close Moab, the more that we're gonna need the transfer station. The other big thing is the Klondike landfill is being able to open what we're labeling as cell 4. If you remember back, the whole big issue about cell 3 where, and I'll go into this more later. I know you guys probably don't want me to go into too much details about that, but that would be the other kind of prioritized deliverable that we're looking at from the engineers. Moab landfill is going to need to start its permit process next year, and that's why looking at this budget, there's going to be probably a greater need for funding for that. We'll kind of get numbers. We talked preliminary numbers with the engineers, and that'll be part of the back and forth that goes on for the rest of this year, so we can kind of dial in on the numbers there. Let's see, mulch has gone up at the Moab landfill. That's kind of about I think the second time that we've just sold out of mulch, which is a good thing for that program.
Very good.
The other big thing is transfer station. We did get a new loader delivered today. As Mike mentioned, we had a guy come and take all the operators and show us what all, because it's full of fancy new buttons. It has a scale so that we'll be able to run it. It's something I've been fighting for the last couple of years. In fact, since we acquired Monument Waste, is to put our trucks out on the streets with the correct weights. So this will help that. And it's kind of, as Kevin, you'd mentioned earlier, I hope this kind of minimizes the abuse that happens out there. But it's definitely going to be kind of a long training thing to try to get these guys, because we're going to be changing how the transfer station works out there.
That scale could be huge. Not only will we not send overweight trucks out, we'll be more efficient.
Yes,
We won't have
Light trucks.
light trucks.
right, exactly,
So-
exactly. Good, good, good.
And I mean, it's got some pretty unique things. I mean, we can track things on the front end as far as a lot of our tonnages and stuff. And I mean, we can set weights on the scale for each one, you know, our tear weights for each particular truck. So I mean, it's going to be, I mean, the flips, it's a cheaper version of trying to get scales. And,
Yes,
you know, because I mean, obviously that's just a huge expense.
that's great.
And yeah, and the tires 2/3. That's all I got.
Well, good. I'm glad that it was good training though. I mean, everybody who's gonna be operating that was in that.
Yeah, they're really good about that. And I mean, the guy that does it, he's a continuing resource if we need to walk around again once we get used to it. And because it's got all kinds of settings. So this this loader, and I might as well just kind of go into this. So as part of the action item down the line a little bit, it came in a little bit more expensive. And we knew this before, because if you remember back to our June meeting, we were gonna put tires that foam filled tires that would suit the transfer station. We were gonna try to get those included in the price. We weren't sure. So these were included in the price. So basically it bumped up the price, but then we didn't have to fork out the cash just right up front.
Okay.
But there's all kinds of settings, and I mean, it's really going to be a good tool. And just to kind of recap too, is we basically swapped this for a loader that we had already have. We had some loader issues way back. Oh, it was before, I think it was March of 2022, loader failures. We ended up getting the loader, but it didn't work. So we took that loader, swapped one for our own, but this is just kind of the end result of all that.
Okay.
And Chris, this one is smaller.
Yes, it's smaller.
Fit the transfer.
Yeah, and I brought that up last time when we were talking about it, that the loader that we had down here was way too big. It had a huge blind spot in the back. And really, so the loader that we just received also has some waste. It's actually a waste handler. So it's got special guards and different things. So this one can go in the trash and not, suffer the consequences.
Oh, good.
And it's got a waste handler filtration system. The operator is not gonna be exposed to nearly as many fumes.
Oh, good.
Positive pressure cab.
Oh, nice.
So that it does, as long as they run it with the doors closed, they can set their environmental controls inside. It's got a meter that measures the pressure. And it should keep all the, fun things that happen in a transfer station on the outside of the machine. So it's definitely a huge improvement
Boy.
than our open aired machine that you get to taste, the transfer station has a flavor every day, depending on, what's laying
Depending
on
on
the floor.
what's being picked up.
That's right. So.
What section of town is being picked up?
That's worth the extra cost alone.
Well, and it really isn't gonna be that much. I can't remember the exact math, but it was, just a little bit more than what we were paying for our previous setup. So
Exactly.
this isn't really a new expense. It's a little bit added, but we were just trading something that didn't work for something that works a lot
Will
better.
work, and will work very effectively, so,
Yeah.
good. Any questions for Chris? Diane saying something.
I have a question for Chris. Do I understand we have purchased this piece of equipment and that you're asking us to amend the June 2023 approval that we gave you to buy this piece of equipment? Is that what we're looking at tonight?
Yeah, I tried to jump ahead to try to speed things up. So, but yeah.
And I'm even jumping further ahead. I make a motion. That if I understand it, I think I understand that, initially the motion that we approved in June 2023 was for a 938M waste handler loader. And now we want to introduce that amount that we approved then was 275 maximum, less or equal to 275, but we want to now increase it to the maximum of 285,000. Is that what I understand?
Yes.
And I make a motion that we do so. Do I need to repeat that?
Why don't you make a motion for the exact number that we're going to approve?
Okay, and I just to be clear, this is a piece of equipment that you received today or yesterday. It's on the premise.
It's on the premise.
It's
Okay.
here.
Okay, well, I make a motion to, you have to, the motion has to be an amended of this original 275,000 to increase it to 285,000 for this
Okay.
waste handler loader.
Okay, that sounds good. Do I have a second?
Did she actually say the full motion?
I have it in front of me, Diane. I can read the motion.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
Do
Chad.
you want me to make the motion or do you want me to just,
I would like for you to make the motion.
okay. Mr. Vice Chair, if I may make a motion.
Yes,
Uh,
proceed.
I move that we amend the approval of the purchase of a 2023 938M waste handler loader from the initial approval in the June 28th of this year board meeting. It was not to exceed 275,000. I move that we amend it to now not exceed 285,000 and authorize our executive director to sign all appropriate documents.
And I second.
Great.
I'm glad you seconded that, Diane.
We're on bated breath. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. Diane?
Yes.
Chad?
Yes.
Kevin, yes. Motion is approved. All right. Thank you, Chris. Is that all, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. LJ, talk to us, birthday girl.
Well, I had a wonderful gift of flowers and balloons and truffles from the staff, and thank everyone so much. That was really sweet. I got this last night from my dad. It's probably backwards.
No, that's good. It reads well.
I'm sorry, I had to go check on my dad when Mike was presenting, so I don't know if he mentioned anything about AMCS. Did you?
I did. I mentioned how much we're making the new project manager sweat.
So I have been definitely sassy with the new project manager.
Good.
I have definitely been, I really liked my line earlier. I'm not playing softball anymore with her.
By the way, it is the baseball season, so good line.
Yeah, there's definitely been some bumps in the road with that. I do feel really good about moving forward, but it's definitely time to play hardball and say, hey, we have a few weeks, so let's get this moving forward. There's been a bunch of communication issues. I'm sure Mike said that earlier. Other than that, we're moving forward with all the billing and things like that. Everything seems to be going fairly smoothly. I'm trying to settle into this remote thing. It's difficult, but Savannah and I communicate well, so that's been going pretty good the last couple of days.
Thanks.
Yeah. And Nick and I communicate. We've always done remote, so we're good there.
So
Other than that, I don't have a lot to report. I do have a question for Chad.
Okay.
So tell us about how you fell off the ladder, Chad.
I just slipped off the ladder. It was the rungs of the ladder were sewn onto the walls of the bounce house. And they're sized for children, not for grown men.
At least he didn't fall in the wagon. That's good.
You don't know that. It's be stated in a public meeting.
Well, thank you, LJ. Anything else?
No, unless somebody has questions for me. I mean, obviously Nick and I are working on the budget. We're working on making sure that we get all the things that we need to in order for that. And we'll have a lot more for you at the next meeting.
And you're gonna be gone till the 1st of November, and then you'll be here for a couple of weeks and gone again?
No, I'll be back in the office on the 31st, but then I leave again in a couple days after that for a long weekend, and then I'll be back for most of November, although I do have a funeral to go to right before Thanksgiving. I'm not sure on the exact date yet. So other than that.
Okay. Well, good. We will say your smiling face. That's good. All right. Next up, Jessica.
All right, well, I'm gonna speed through this. 6 o'clock. So the Wagback Corral prototype has been delivered to the transit hub. It looks really great. I've heard really good feedback from it, and I've already begun the brainstorming for the second one. Not quite sure where it's going to go, but it'll be a very similar concept. So I'm glad we finally got that 3 months later.
This is, you said, a Wagback collection.
The Wagback Corral, something.
Oh.
It's made of completely reclaimed material from the Moab landfill and the CRC, including bolts that we've removed from the e-waste.
Oh,
picture.
yeah. Oh, wow. That's great.
And that's my artwork on the front.
Yeah, that's great.
It turned out really well.
You bet. Excellent, excellent. Well, that's definitely attractive for Wagbags.
Yeah, well, the idea was that they would treat it kinder if
Right.
it was wrapped in something pretty.
Yeah.
So far,
I agree.
If we want that, the county wants that to expand, it's gotta have some visibility.
You bet. Oh, I like it.
that's up and going. The October newsletter went out. Yeah.
Thank you.
I volunteered as the trash and recycling coordinator for the Bedrock Arts Festival. That went really well. I was able to divert a lot of materials from the trash stream, and we actually barely filled up their yard container. So
Wow.
I'm quite pleased with that.
Very
And
good.
it just continues to foster a good relationship between us and the city.
Mhm.
Speaking of the mark, I received the portraits and appreciation cards from the waste photography and audio series that was done by Renee Resmond, the artist in residence for the mark. And I'll be bringing those over shortly.
Cool.
Mike's already talked about the RCU Fall Conference, so that's done. We've got a couple of upcoming meetings in November, which is the WAGBAG, meeting of the WAGBAG meeting folks. And then the sustainability action plan as well. I've begun training on the side for the AMCS software, or whatever the acronym is, just as a backup, just in case folks aren't available.
Excellent.
And last but not least, the fall 2023 bachelor program has officially started and has had a very strong start. We've already had almost 100 people register, and several folks have already maxed out their vouchers within the first 2 days.
Excellent.
So
It's working. Very
Yep.
good. Any questions for Jessica? Great. Nick, you're next up.
Okay, just going back to that, the new loader, have we made the first payment on that? Or is that coming up?
No, we have
so-
not.
No.
And part of that, so I'm working, so we were supposed to get this loader previously. And the loader we returned, we've actually passed, or we were only supposed to have it for a year. So we passed that date in May. So I'm trying, well, and they have agreed to this. It's just a matter of how much they're gonna give us credit towards the first payment.
Okay,
If we've made any payments on that since May. So that's gonna be, there's some behind the scenes thing to finalize this, as there always is.
the amortization schedule that's in the board packet, that's the revised one is what it'll be though, I mean, in terms of the.
Yes.
schedule? Okay, great.
Yes.
Just other items for me, just again, aforementioned, working on the budget, so I may be reaching out to various staff members on some questions of things I may want to include. Again, the biggest piece of that is the labor, but LJ and I do have a labor spreadsheet that we will be diving into and looking at rates and whatnot by employee to build that labor section of the budget. And so yeah, I'll be working on that the next few weeks. All aspects of the budget over the next few weeks, but I still need to book the September revenue into QuickBooks, so I'm a little bit behind on that, but I'm gonna get caught up on the various aspects of the P&L through September, so we'll get that cranked out.
Great.
That's it for me for the moment.
Any questions for Nick? Thanks, Nick.
Very welcome.
Samantha, since you're here, how are you doing?
Savannah. My name is Savannah.
We put that in the minutes.
No, it's hilarious. Everybody always calls me Samantha. I guess I should just change my name to Samantha.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just like been an inside joke. But what did you say? That's all I heard.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm just trying to get everything updated with AMCS. Have been updating all the service agreements, trying to get all the pricing correct. So when we go live, it'll be correct
Great.
and clean. We want clean data.
Yeah.
That's have been an issue with our old software. It's
Mhm.
all old and not correct. So.
That right there is, I don't mean to interrupt, that right there is part of the reason AMCS is taking longer than expected. We're having to do a lot of manual work. I mean Samantha over there. And it's junk in, junk out, so it's very, very important that we get it in right
Uh-huh.
and it's falling on her shoulders.
Yeah.
She's been- Go ahead.
It's just having to help other people, have to do my main position, having
Mhm.
to do that. It's been hard, but we're making it work. But we just keep adding things into this spreadsheet. So it's
Mhm.
like,
Well, our vast
so
number of prices we have for everything under the sun complicates it.
Uh-huh.
And we do, I don't know how to get around it. So it's best we put it in correct.
I'm the man for the job.
Good job. Ben.
You're the woman for the job. You're doing
Yeah.
an amazing
Yeah.
job, making sure that it's in there correctly is so important moving forward. That is
Right.
like key.
Well, thank you so much for being there and doing this.
Mhm.
Board reports. Chad, do you have anything from the public to tell us?
No, sir.
Okay. How about you, Diane? What's the word in Castle Valley?
Well, I just wanted to say that there has, in the sustainability group that we've been a part of, some of the staff there at the solid waste, and we've heard that there was going to be a public input component of this, and I think I'm hoping to see it somewhere in the written page in the next day or two, that I have it on my calendar as the first at the Grand Center from 4 to 6 p.m. Maybe somebody there knows more about it than me, but I think that's just the public input, and members of the technical advisory committee are invited to come, but it's mainly for the public, for input from them, so that we get extra input, I think. And then I have something on the 2nd, so I don't know if I think there's 2 meetings, and the 2nd is the one for the TAC committee, and the 1st is the one for the public input, but I'm not real sure. Stay tuned.
Very good, very good. One little comment. I was in Hawaii for 10 days and we went to a very private beach. And on the way to the private beach was a small road that went right by a transfer station. And it was amazing to me as we were driving down this maybe 3/4 of a mile road, how many couches and cars were in the lava flow on the sides of this road going to the transfer station. The garbage was incredible, going to this beautiful pristine beach on the Hawaiian Islands and the garbage along this road. So I'm very proud of our, the way we keep this, county cleaned up. I mean,
So you're saying the transfer station there charges too much for couches?
they must.
They turn around at the gate and they drop it off.
And it was so funny because there'd be one couch that was the exact same design, 3 different colors of it. 3 different couches, the exact same design, but a different color. So I don't know, the guy didn't like the couch and he just threw it away, but
Was
It
that
was
the big,
very interesting.
was that the Big Island or some other island?
yes, the Big Island, just south of Kona on the Big Island. Yeah.
Mm.
And it was down in this, it was kind of an area where no one, a lot of meth heads were down in that area and stuff. And it was just kind of an interesting area, but going to that transfer station was, we went there almost every day because that was one of the best beaches to go to, but it was hilarious. The road would drop off pretty sharp, 10 to 12 feet, and there'd be 4 couches in that little section where between this lava flow before the transfer station.
Mm.
So
People trash in paradise, huh?
a trash in paradise, I couldn't believe it.
That's-
Anyway, go ahead.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any old business we need to look at? Any new business?
Well, no, I think because we already did the motion for the old business, so I think we're good.
Yep. Future considerations, we have a scheduled board meeting of the ACB for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Unless we do a special board meeting or a workshop, but we will determine, that's to be determined. Anything else from anyone else? Thanks for working so hard. Happy birthday again, LJ. we're gonna miss you around here, but we'll treat you as best we can for while you're here.
Well, I'm gonna keep doing this remote thing for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. You don't have to have us grab you by the neck and say, wait. We've gotten to the end of our agenda. I will adjourn this meeting at 6:13.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, no motion to adjourn. It's over.